You think you know all Byzantium strategies in EU4? I know that you don't. I know that you don't know about the actual best Byzantium strategy because I've developed that in the last few weeks. Because with my brand new Byzantium strategy, you'll have 154 ducats of income, number one great power slot with about 1.2k own development, the ability to raid coasts, and you'll be able to unlock the best mission modifier of the entire Byzantine mission tree that gives you the most AE and time efficient way to reconquer the Roman Empire. And you'll have about endless opportunities to scale the hell out of your country. And all of that, of course, by 1517. I'm the student and I present to you Nova Roma plus Ultra. But before I go into the detailed explanation on what I did, how I did it with no RNG, and why it is so much better than a normal Byzantium strategy, let me just ask you two questions. First question, which region has the most potential? Is it A, the Middle East region, or is it B, the Mexico, Ivory Coast, Sevilla region? And the second question is, what regions will give you the most AE problems while reconquering the Roman Empire? Is it A, the Middle East region, or is it B, the Europe region? So I think most of you will answer both of these questions with answer number B, right? So then if the West has so much more potential and is so much more important to conquer early on, why would you still go for the East first as Byzantium? And that is where I am in 1517, as you can see, already with the true Roman map color. And of course, this is not everything that I own. I also own a lot of provinces in New World. As you can see, a colony in Brazil, more than enough colonies, all the trade centers almost in the Caribbean, as well as a large chunk of land in the Mexico region, which, by the way, actually my capital is in the province of Mexico itself. But before we get to the point why this is so much stronger, let me just go into the time lapse and explain how I got here from 1444 start date, of course. So the thing is, as Byzantium, the biggest threat in the early game is, of course, the Ottoman Empire, you know? And actually all Byzantium guides that I've seen were about the fact to fight the Ottomans within the first 10 years or 20 years of the game, okay? Now what I thought is, if that is such a hard war that, you know, it takes a lot of loans to win that war, it takes a lot of effort, of time, of RNG dependence and so on, why don't you just ignore the Ottomans completely? And that is exactly what I did. If you can see over here, I've of course first conquered Epirus, and then once Naples got released, I conquered all of these provinces of Naples. There is a mission for Byzantium that if you conquer Epirus, you get permanent claims on Naples, okay? And now Naples gets released, I think 95% or something of the time, when the Aragonese ruler dies, of course. So this is literally no RNG at all, you know? This is literally happens 95% of the games, and every time it happens, they will have no allies whatsoever. And by that point, I of course had secured my defensive alliances with Muscovy and Crimea by that point, which also is a good ally. You can ally Crimea quite easily as Byzantium, and they have of course other big allies as Kazan and, you know, Uzbek or something. So that is a very reliable ally, as well as Muscovy, of course, which is the nation that brings in the numbers so that the Ottomans are threatened to not attack you, okay? Now, actually, after you conquered Naples, you can very easily ally Austria. They will flip friendly eventually, even though you have less than, you know, like 50 relations or something, because I, of course, abandoned the Union of Churches privilege. So that is very easy to ally Austria nonetheless. So that was my defensive alliance, and then I could focus on my conquest ideas, which, if you have the mission tree in your mind, you're going to see that conquering these 7 provinces of Naples, these exact 7 provinces over here, by the way, then you get a permanent claim on all of Tunis over here. Let me just go on with the time-lapse right here. You notice that Tunis will of course be in a war. You can see, of course, I've beaten them up already. They will be in a war with Castile when they attack Granada, in literally 100% of the times. Morocco will be in a war with Castile within the first 10 years of the game, then they won't help Tunis defend. So you can go into a 1v1 against Tunis, and as I did over here, conquer all of these Tunisian lands over here. And yeah, of course, then Tlemcen is the next one that is very easy to conquer. They have, as you can see, no allies in my game, and they won't have big allies in your game as well. And then, you know, what you can see, what I did is I conquered the North African coastline, which gives you another mission that gives you permanent claims on the entirety of Iberia. And by that point, you know, in the early 1470s, you'll have enough relations with France that typically rival either Aragon or Castile, so that you can actually ally France. And that's exactly what I did in my game as well. And then I called France in to a war against Castile. And by the way, also, you can win a war against Castile on your own because of that little strait over here, okay? By that point you will have like 30 galleys or something, so you will have the naval superiority, and you will have the money because you would have switched the culture to Tunisian by that point, which, you know, if you state all of these Tunisian coastal provinces, you'll have more development in Tunisian culture than in Greek culture, which lets you become Tunisian primary culture, which, by the way, is anyways a better culture group, you know, than your Greek culture group. And it allows you to have the naval doctrine for raiding, so you won't have any money issues from there on until the end of the game, basically. But anyways, then I called in France, and I've beaten Castile together with France very easily. You can see over there I've took a whole bunch of provinces in the south of Castile, as well as by that point I took Cap Verde from Portugal in that same war, which allows me now to colonize with the expansion ideas that I took by that point. And from now on, it's actually very interesting that, you know, I've just conquered that province from Portugal later, and from there on I went island hopping to the Caribbeans. You can see one province over there. And from there on, after that finished, of course, into the Mexico region, as you can see right there, while I'm still, uniting the North Africa region, which, by the way, is my primary culture, so all of that is accepted. And then you can see over here that I've changed my color, but also I've conquered all of these gold mines in Mexico, as well as I conquered that one province of Antioquia, as well as, the Delta over here for some trade power, so that I can then move my capital to Antioquia over here, which is on the Asian continent, which is then the only stated province on the Asian continent, so that I can then immediately make Mexico my capital afterwards, so that I keep all of these lands directly under my own control for, of course, that juicy gold income. And now that you know how easy and non-RNG dependent it was to get to that point where I am right now, let's go on with the interesting part on why this is such a favorable position to be in as Byzantium compared to a conventional Byzantium run, where you, of course, had conquered all of the Eastern Mediterranean provinces already by that point as well, right? And actually the first argument for that is your own scalability. Because not only will you have more income because of that insane gold income, as you can see, 40 ducats of gold already, and I have not even finished, these two gold colonies, so I will get even more gold income in the future once I conquer most of Mexico. But that's not all. Actually, it's also about the trade nodes. Okay, now the Constantinople trade node, you can see it's worth 22 points basically, which you could, of course, push up a little bit more by getting, a little bit more ducats from Alexandria, a little bit better, trade share from Aleppo, and maybe you would get like 5 ducats more from, or 10 ducats more from Persia or something, even though that is, not really required to form Rome anyways. But you could also, as I did, go to keep your main trade node in Constantinople just to collect that nice ducats over there, but also then go to control the Sevilla trade node, which you can see I have almost 60% influence in the Sevilla trade node. There is basically nothing going out there, and as long as I go on with beating up Castile, eventually they will move their main trade node to Bordeaux or something, so I will have literally like 80 to 90% of this trade node control. And you can see that it's already a higher value trade node, even though there is literally almost nothing going into from Ivory Coast, okay? So the income that comes from, the New World is already 6 ducats, and it will increase the more provinces you conquer, the more provinces you control in, in the Caribbean and Mexico region, and Panama for that matter. So this trade network on the Atlantic Sea over here is just way more scalable than the Eastern trade nodes. Of course, without India, because think about it, you can get the Indian trade also to Sevilla very easily, right? So that's not an argument to go for India, because you can do this in this game probably even easier than in an Eastern focused game. And if you do the Eastern approach, then you'll of course lose out on all of that Sevilla trade power until you conquer like a Giga Spain that has 10,000 colonies, right? In this game, I am the main colonizer, so I don't have to fight any colonizers because I am the colonizer, right? Now the other thing is the super safe and super scalable power base that you'll have in Mexico. Now it is super safe, of course, because if you want to, restore the Roman Empire, you will fight a lot of, European, Asian guys. They will never be able to conquer or to occupy anything on these Mexican provinces, right? So this will be a very nice safe space for you to build prosperity, to develop your country, not only the gold provinces, because keep in mind, there is also that juicy cocoa trade good and, a lot of dyes and so on. So this region in general is super easy to conquer, super valuable to full state. And then last but not least, the scalability of raiding. Of course, I can raid because I am primary culture Tunisian. If you go for the Eastern approach, you won't be able to flip Tunisian culture without destating massive amounts of your conquered lands, right? If you go for Tunisia in your second bigger war, first one against Naples and then directly into Tunis, you'll have a very small amount of land and you will immediately get the ability to raid. And if you have, these provinces in Naples and then of course Constantinople and so on, you will literally be able to raid the entirety of the Mediterranean coastline by 1550s, which is a massive early game income boost that you can scale with extremely fast, okay? And you are, of course, Orthodox, so you can literally raid every other nation in the Mediterranean, including, for example, the Gulf of Venice over here. The second argument why this is better is because it has a more efficient conquest setup, okay? The reason for that is that you use the Age of Discovery to scale your country to a very wealthy place with a lot of potential conquest paths, okay? Now, another reason for that is that if you wait for the Age of Reformation, of course, which I will have fulfilled several things already, so unify culture is already done, convert another nation is already done, convert provinces is already done. So I will be easily able to grab that special minus 25% war score cost versus other religion bonus from the Age of Reformation, very fast into the Age of Reformation, which, by the way, starts in about 10 years already. Now that combined with the monument of Malta Force that, I definitely have enough money to build up easily, will be already minus 40% war score cost versus other religions, okay? And then comes the interesting part that I mentioned in the intro, that there is a mission path on the, left side of your mission tree where you don't need to conquer anything for the Ottomans for. You can just conquer Epirus with no allies, you can conquer Naples with no allies, and you can conquer Tunis with no allies after, Castile attacked Morocco. So these three missions over here are all very easily to complete, and then that last mission over here requires you to have 40 provinces in the Iberia region, which you can see I'm missing only 8 provinces right now, so I will definitely have that until the Age of Reformation starts. And this one gives you literally the best mission modifier in this entire conquest mission tree, which is war score cost versus other religions, another minus 10% until the end of Age of Reformation, okay? Which means that with all of these three modifiers of the age bonus, of the Malta monument, and of your mission modifier, you will have minus 50% war score cost versus other religions. And that opens you very interesting possibilities, which is basically based on your third idea group choice, which I should get in the next few years, which can either be diplomatic ideas, for that another 20% war score cost, if you literally don't care for any AE things, because at that point you'll have minus 70% war score cost reduction on every other nation, except like Muscovy, because they are also Orthodox, but literally every other nation that you need to conquer for the Roman Empire, you'll have minus 70% reduction for war score costs. So you can do a speed run probably for the Roman Empire until 1540 or something, easily, with that stacking. Of course, that would be a very destable Roman Empire with a lot of overextension and so on, which is why I would recommend to go for another path, which is taking espionage ideas, because then you still have minus 50% war score cost reduction. So this is, not 6 wars against the Ottomans, but more like 3 wars to completely annex the Ottomans. So it's still a huge bonus on the war score cost, but also you'll have a stacked modifier of minus 40% on AE impact for minus 20% over here, minus 10% from prestige, and of course an additional minus 10% from your religious icon. So with that combination of minus 50% war score cost and minus 40% AE impact, you can easily conquer all of the Roman Empire basically with no aggressive expansion problems and no war score and time problems. So that is a very, very efficient way to reconquer the Roman Empire, to first build up a very strong nation in the first age, as I did in this case, with the special tactic of going to Mexico first and to Iberia very fast. And then in the Age of Reformation, with all the crazy modifiers on also, of course, AE spreading for, other religions and so on, then go for the big conquest and then stack up all the modifiers and then have the very efficient expansion setup. And last but not least, the third argument why this is better than a conventional Byzantium strategy is that you'll have basically no RNG dependence at all in the early game, which is probably causing the most problems as Byzantium, which is RNG dependence on, the Ottomans attacking you, you not winning against the Ottomans, you not having expansion possibilities after the Ottomans and so on, right? With this strategy, you'll have spread out of the Mediterranean very fast, so a lot of potential expansion opportunities, and the first few wars literally have no RNG dependence at all. If you declare on the 11th of December on Epirus, they will have no allies. If you declare as soon as Naples is released, they will have no allies. If you wait until Tunis is in a war with Castile and Morocco and so on, which by the way happens literally every single game, then Tunis will have no allies and you can conquer them easily. And after that, you'll be so strong that all of the Maghrebi nations are basically free to, free real estate to go into, right? And after you got the raiding bonus and after you got the strait over here from Portugal probably, or, rushing it in a war, you will have a easy war against Castile to fight them and, bait them to go over and then kill them and so on, right? So this is literally the least RNG dependent Byzantium strategy that I've ever seen anywhere. But this is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this special Byzantium strategy, the most fun Byzantium strategy that I've ever played, I think. So this was it for today. This was it for this week. And we are going to see, as always, on the next Monday.